On this episode, we visit a teacher who helps build a home with Habitat for Humanity. Travel Television will journey to the Indian Canyons, and on Web Tips, we'll highlight a site for the disabled traveler.
Many of the volunteers coming to the Gulf Coast are college students who have participated in university-sponsored programs, sometimes referred to as alternative spring break vacations. Teachers, professors, and other school staff have also served as active volunteers. In this story, we'll talk to a college professor who has traveled to the Gulf Coast during a semester break to lend a hand with a habitat building project in Bay St. Louis.
Hi there, my name is Marla Schofer, and we're here at, in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi at a Habitat for Humanity work site where we are working on 10 homes that are being built. The one behind me is called a Blitz home, which means that we will be putting up this entire home start to finish from slab to move-in condition within 1 week, which is pretty amazing if you've ever seen a home before. This is my first experience with doing anything with Habitat. I'm a volunteer. I've never worked on a house before except for some minor house painting. And what I've been doing the last couple of days is putting up siding, putting on some roof material, building a kitchen, all things I've never done before that I'm learning how to do. And I also would like to tell you that this is my vacation. This is not my typical idea of a vacation that I would go on, but I chose to do it because I was really concerned about what was going on down here in New Orleans. I initially got connected down here through Habitat, and they're working with a local organization that's called Lanyap Church, which actually is a mission that was put together right after Katrina to come down and help build houses. And what they did is they built sort of army barrack housing with 290 bunk beds, and for $20 a day, I get a bunk and 3 meals and, you know, shower and toilet facilities. It's a bit rustic, but you know, look what you're doing and look what you're working on. So it's if you think about it as a vacation, it's probably the least expensive vacation you could ever take, and probably the most rewarding that you could ever do in your life. It's just been an incredible experience for me. I'm meeting really good people, and it's really worthwhile. There's still a ton of work to do down here in Mississippi and in Louisiana. I think that we're not seeing a lot of it anymore in the news and the media, but it's going to be years and years before things are cleaned up here. And there's a lot of people that are living in FEMA trailers. They don't have homes to live in. The countryside is landscaped with homes that have been blown apart. And I would encourage anybody who can come down here to try to get a trip down here. It's really worthwhile, and it's probably one of the more interesting trips I've ever taken, and I think it's going to have a big effect on my life.
To see volunteer stories, go to www.projectkatrinavolunteers.net.
There is an organization devoted to making travel accessible and comfortable for travelers with disabilities. FlyingWithDisability.org explains that disability need not create any hindrance to a pleasant journey. Many people automatically assume that just because a person has a disability, it will restrict their opportunity to travel around the world. This should not be the case. True, flying with a disability may be slightly more complicated, but the majority of airlines are now geared towards catering to disabled flyers. Flying with Disability is a site designed to provide impartial information and advice to all disabled people around the world who travel by air. It serves as a comprehensive information resource for all disabled flyers, but also as an important forum for disabled flyers to share their experiences of flying to other disabled travelers.
And this is how Katrina left it.
Historic buildings and a brand new facility at Gulfside Assembly were flooded and flattened by Hurricane Katrina's fury in August 2005.
We raised the building, celebrated. 20 days later, it was gone. So God must have a better plan for this place. Otherwise, he would not have swept it clean.
The United Methodist site in Waveland, Mississippi, nestled between the Gulf of Mexico and soaring cedar and oak trees, served for decades as a retreat for African Americans during segregated times. Although the buildings no longer stand, the spirit of hope is being restored.
has a life that will continue and be a thing of beauty that people will enjoy and appreciate.
Volunteers, including several United Methodist pastors, spent nearly 6 months at the Hinton Rural Life Center in North Carolina, crafting symbolic furniture from these logs that once stood as shade trees at Gulfside. They're carefully shaping these pieces of eastern red cedar into a communion table, the centerpiece, literally, of the 2008 General Conference.
People can walk up to it and touch the communion table or the pulpit or something and say, this was a tree at Gulfside.
The pieces represent the rich past and promising future of this historic site. Plans call for the furniture to be returned to a rebuilt Gulfside.
It's pretty amazing what it symbolizes, I think, that it survived.
In our travel segment, we will visit Indian Canyons in California. An oasis in the desert, this series of canyons offers visitors a chance to witness a location listed in the National Register.
What a contrast. Barren hills, sprawling desert, wildflowers, and what appears to me to be an oasis. Now let's face it, how many of you have ever been to an oasis? Well, here in Indian Canyons, literally at the edge of the city of Palm Springs, lies the second largest oasis in the entire United States. And that's just the beginning of it. We're going to head up and check out the rest of it. Come on with me. So we've come from the desert, and now we're in an oasis. Literally, an oasis, as you think about it, I think a lot of people think it's like a small body of water surrounded by a handful of trees. In this case, this oasis goes back 4 miles into this canyon, and who better to tell us about it than Chris, the tribal ranger here. Hey, Chris. Good, good, good. Let's take a walk. You had mentioned earlier that it goes way back from here, 4 miles.
It does. This is just actually the first part of the canyon that people would actually go to and walk around in. It's a half a mile up, crossover, and it's a 1 mile loop trail. Always has water year round here. Lots of diversity of wildlife and flowering you're going to find. And one of the main points of why people can survive out here.
Yeah, with the water. Now, you'd mentioned that the snow, when it melts, sometimes it runs off, but a lot of it runs deep into the mountain, into this aquifer, and then it comes up as spring water, correct?
The core of the mountain is basically an aquifer, right in the center of the mountain. It snows every year in the mountains, melts, percolates into the earth, and you're right, as the springs come out, it's about a 7-year process.
7 years for the water to go down, come back out.
To get to this area where we are right now.
Can I go take a drink of it?
I want it only because of the fact that we're not at the true source.
Gotcha, gotcha. So I might have to get a little further upstream here first.
Yeah, the tribe made this home. They moved approximately between 2,000 and 3,000 years ago into the area. And the reason why they could live in this area is because of the water sources that they did find. And so Andreas, being the year-round water source, had a pretty big population.
Right. Like, what was the population back then?
Well, probably about 200 people actually lived up in the area.
Okay. Gotcha.
They made a home out of it.
It's grown, the area's grown a little bit since then, though, huh?
But yeah, a little bit, not much though.
Yeah.
Palm Springs still trying to keep that small town feel to it, and
right.
The village type.
Absolutely. Well, it's pretty interesting. We're here in this oasis, and we're going to check out literally how some of these people lived back then.
Correct. I'm going to show you some grinding mortars and also some of the traditional homes.
Fantastic. Well, that's a traditional kish, and what's interesting about that is you have to be kind of little to fit in there. One thing about the doorway, it actually faces east. All the doors face east to face the rising sun. So, Chris, these folks, they lived in these huts, if you would, right? And how many family members would actually fit in there?
Well, you actually put quite a few people in there, probably up to a big one like this, 15 by 15, up to, say, up 10 to 12 people.
10 to 12 people would live in that.
Correct. And actually, the kish is more like while it is a traditional home, it's also more of a place of storage and for inclement weather.
Okay.
Because the main house is actually behind you.
Ah, right over here.
Right.
I saw it on our way up.
Yeah, that's the Ramada.
Okay.
which is basically some posts and a thatch roof. Since it is so hot here in summertime, if you pack a bunch of people in there,
It could get pretty warm.
yeah, really uncomfortable. So most of your sleeping would actually be done underneath the ramada.
Right, so you have the breeze coming through and it's very comfortable, and unless you have inclement weather, this is what you do.
Then you would go right back to the kish again.
All right, now we're
hang
going to go.
out.
So now we've seen how they sleep, where they get their water from, this beautiful oasis. Let's see how they prepared some of their meals. What do you
Fantastic,
say?
right over here.
Let's go. Chris, we checked out the kish, and now we're checking out what you call a grinding mortar.
Correct, where they would grind their food up.
It's a pretty big mortar.
Well, it's a big rock at least, with lots of mortars on it, yeah.
And as big as it is, it's strategically placed near these trees. Tell me about these trees. What are they?
That's the mesquite. When most people think about for barbecue pits and stuff like that, for the tribe, it was their most important food source. They grew the beans on it that they would actually gather in the spring and summertime, dry out, grind up, and make their food.
And they would do that in one of these mortars right here.
Correct.
And this one's about 8 inches deep, which means that you had told me 1 inch every 100 years.
Of
it would go
constant
down.
grinding and pounding, yeah, to go down
So
the rock.
these tribal members have, for at least 800 years, been using this particular mortar right here.
Right, and passed down through the same family over all those years as well.
Got it. So this is like, you know, the Murphy family, if you would. I
Right.
don't think there are too many
And
Murphys.
there's the
in
Jones
tribe,
over
huh?
there and the Smiths over here.
Well, great. It's a great education. Appreciate you sharing your knowledge.
Thanks for
with us.
coming out. I appreciate you coming.
Wonderful.
After I got married, I had both of us were pharmacists, my husband and I, and we were the only drugstore in Waveland, and there was an apartment over the drugstore, and that's where I raised the 7 girls.
My father died when I was 12, and my youngest sister was 2.5 weeks old.
Yeah.
So Mama took over when my father died.
And so it was, you've heard the story, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it really was that way. The village did help me. If the girls were out on the beach and they were maybe with no sleeves on and the wind was coming up and it was getting cold, somebody would come by, Louise, you better go get the girls. It's getting chilly out.
The elderly people in the parish have been waiting for this day to see a groundbreaking for 3 years, you know, and we kept hoping and wishing and praying. I've been in St. Clair's Parish all of my life, for 76 years, and my parents and grandparents before me were also members of St. Clair's Parish. My grandfather and father helped build the first church that was here at St. Clair's. It was a wooden church. It was painted white. My mother and father were married in there, and so were my husband and I in 1952. We were married in this wooden church. And of course my kids, my 5 of my children, have all been baptized, received First Communion. All but one was married in that church, in St. Clair's Church. Not the wooden church, but the new brick church. So anyway, it's always been a big part of my life and my heart.
is it's going to be a big relief. It's going to be so much nicer once the building is up than being in the tent. The tent's nice, but
it's a tent.
It's a tent. In the summertime, it gets rather hot.
Do you think it's going to be emotional?
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be some tears over there?
I think so. I'll probably shed some myself.
Okay.
It's somewhat of a new beginning. It marks a milestone, and we'll be very happy to get back into a real church instead of a tent.
Water is a sign of life. The waters from the heaven, which hopefully we'll hold off for a few moments, give life to the earth. The waters of baptism give us eternal life. And by sprinkling water here, we say, Lord, let this sign of life, water, be a sign of our prayer that your life is going to be here among us. Because this building is just a building, unless we make it something more. An edifice for the glory of God.
Plumbers and helpers, electricians.
So I'm just down here because I want to be. It was a lot of fun, and it was cool to help people.
I volunteered to help people and to show other teenagers that they can come and do this too.
This is hard work, but it's definitely worth it. We're just helping people, and it's a great experience. Everyone should do it.
Did you meet anybody new today?
Yes, I met about 8 other new kids and got their phone numbers so we can keep in touch.
Volunteers, we've had so many people come down here and help us with the cleanup. I just go to show you there's so much more good about this country than ever is wrong with it.
So if somebody were to say to you, why bother rebuilding St. Clair?
Oh my goodness.
Why not go to Our Lady of the Gulf? Why not go to St. Anne? Why not go past Christian? Has anyone ever asked you that question? Or
Yes,
said that
we
to you?
had a discussion with the bishop. He came, and we talked about that, and that was the question: why rebuild St. Clair? And the reason to rebuild St. Clair is because it's all an integral part of our lives. It's been through generation after generation after generation, and I know people say that the place doesn't matter, but the place does matter, because the place has all the memories of the community. And like Mama was saying, just the love of the Eucharist at that church too. That's,
oh yes.
I think that means that the rebirth of the parish, rebirth of the community, and that the people who will benefit generations to come from a new church, a new multi-purpose building, will someday thank us for the vision that we're going to have for the future.
I think it's going to bring a lot of hope for people who haven't started rebuilding yet, who haven't come back yet because of the uncertainty of, the community and the church and the schools. And I think once they know that their church is coming back, it's going to be a stability for them to say, okay, things are getting better as far as that area goes. Maybe we should rebuild and come back, and things are starting to get back to normal. And it's going to be great. As far as the neighborhood, it'll make it look a lot better too.
It won't look like debris anymore.
The church will be eventually built. I don't think it's going to be built in my lifetime, but my children and grandchildren will see it.
And is that important to you?
Yes, it is. Very important.
If you plan on traveling overseas this holiday season, here are some tips to make your trip easier and safer. Make sure you have a signed, valid passport and visas if required. Before you go, fill in the emergency information page of your passport. Also, make 2 copies of your passport identification page. This will facilitate replacement if your passport is lost or stolen. Leave 1 copy at home and carry the other with you, separate from your passport. Familiarize yourself with local laws and customs of the countries to which you are traveling. Remember, while in a foreign country, you are subject to its laws. Prior to your departure, you should register with the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. This will make your presence and whereabouts known in case it is necessary to contact you in an emergency. Finally, leave a copy of your itinerary with family or friends at home so that you can be contacted in case of an emergency. For more international travel tips, visit the State Department's website at travel.state.gov.
I was a volunteer here in St. Bernard Parish for the past 24 years after I was paralyzed in a car accident. As you can see, this is what's left of my home after Katrina. I didn't think I'd ever see my home rebuilt again. I spent the past 2 years living in a FEMA trailer, waiting to die in a FEMA trailer.
Debris, push all that. I brought a hammer. If you want to pull like the individual nails out of studs, so when they come in here and do all the other work.
I'm Ashley Ramos.
I'm Emily Wasserman.
And we are here with the Sid Jacobson JCC program.
We're helping to build, to reconstruct the homes after Hurricane Katrina hit over 2 years ago. And we gave her a December vacation because we thought that there's nothing else I could think of that is more rewarding than doing something like this. And it's just so unbelievable to see personally the faces and of these people after their homes have been destroyed, and they've all stayed so positive about it. And it's really humbling, the whole experience.
Everything here was once amazing, and now it's been ruined, and I'd like to get it back to the way it was. And I'm willing to sacrifice my vacation, anything it takes to get this done.
It's kind of sad that all these homes were once like any other homes, and now just because of a hurricane, they got ruined and they have to start from scratch. And we're here to help them.
We saw a lot of the destruction, and it was really devastating to see what had actually happened, and it was a big accomplishment to figure out that we finished this and that there's more of a chance that somebody might move back.
For me, this was much more, as a Catholic, what Christmas is to me is to practice giving instead of receiving, and this is a perfect thing for me. I came out here to give, instead of staying home and receiving a bunch of gifts. And that's practically what I'm trying, because I've been pretty spoiled up to this point. And just when I heard about New Orleans, like, I felt like this would be a great idea to do that, you know, and help others.
My Christmas present, the only thing I got for Christmas this year is a whole group of volunteers. I walked outside my front door and I seen a rainbow from the beginning to the end, and 20 minutes later I found out I was going to have some 16 volunteers helping me today. If there were more people like this in America that would volunteer their time to help put people back in their homes, thanks would be immense. And if you ever needed this, I'm pretty sure most of us would pack up our things and come to you. So I would like to see a permanent facility built where they have to put in 35 hours of community service and actual accountability. That way the state has something to grasp onto, so they could fund this and make this really happen. And they put in their hours in their community service, they'll have a fed meal and a free place to stay.
I just want to thank you volunteers for everything y'all have done. This storm has been where we have seen some of the best in America and some of the most scummiest people in the world that have come here for some of their own self-gain. But to see these young people that are here to do something, not to fill their pockets, is truly amazing. A lot of the people here that are doing this work are doing it genuinely from their heart and genuinely trying to improve our lives.
I smoke while I'm watching cartoons. I have my first cigarette of the day when I get up. We smoke in the car on the way to school. I smoke while I'm coloring. I smoke during my nap.
When you smoke around your kids,
I'm down to about a pack a day.
it's like they're smoking. Secondhand smoke can hurt their lung growth and permanently damage lung functions.
I tried quitting. I need to try again.
Secondhand smoke, it's nothing to kid about.